What is up, YouTubers, gamers, and hobbyists? Welcome to P&Q, the question and answer series, where you ask me questions or put comments to me, and then I respond to you in the following P&Q. Now, if you're scratching your head, you're, I don't know, fairly new to YouTube or my channel or whatever, and you're thinking, what do you mean Q&A? What's this all about? This is basically where people have asked me questions or they've given me a comment that is a relatively interesting comment that I can perhaps talk about for a couple of minutes, delve into a little bit, and just talk about. There used to be all the rage years ago when people in the hobby were starting. I think other hobbies and niches did them as well. I think it's more of a smaller channel thing. Although there have been some big ones over time. The most notable for me is Mini Wargaming, although they weren't. I think they did put it on YouTube. Actually, they were on Vimeo, I think, to start with their videos. But yeah. So you could ask them questions, but essentially it was a lot of smaller channels like me, and or even smaller. I'm a small fish in a very large ocean, but there are smaller channels, and it's a good way to get to know the host, like me. Ask me questions, so that way it doesn't matter if you ask me questions I've already been asked before over the years. Plus, I might forget what my view was, or my view might have changed since I last talked about it. And I'm just reading the first. I've got a bunch of questions here. I've printed them up in a bigger font because I found that reading them off my my iPad or whatever was a little bit like I'm squinting because my eyesight's not that great. And I don't want to appear more podcasty. Is that the right word? I don't know. Anyway, so you can ask me questions anytime. Email me miniwarzone@gmail.com. Put a comment on any video you like, as long as I pick it up and see it. Usually comments from videos usually come from P&Q, so like maybe the last P&Q, or and then I'll answer it in the next one, or a comment or question on a different video, and I'll pick it up and I'll paste it into a list of questions I have, or the least likely one, but it has happened a few times, even here in Seaton, in person. And then I think, ooh, well, that's a good question. And I classify as talking to someone on the phone as in person. It's like a one-to-one almost question. So say I was talking to my mate about something, and he asked me a hobby-related question, and I thought, oh, that would make a good P&Q question to answer. And I said, oh, so I usually answer it, and then I said, I'm gonna answer that on a video, by the way, should you want to watch the video. Anyway, last time I did one of these, I think it was this year, summer. Maybe it was back in April. I don't know. With my mind and brain, and it seems like a long time ago. Not that long, but a while since I've done one. I mean, given the fact, and I say that because given the fact that I used to do them every week, anything over that seems a long time now. And then I went to monthly and then seasonally, like summer, winter, Christmas, Halloween, that sort of thing. Birthday. But I believe, and I think I've got this right. I said on the last one, I'll just wait until I get a bunch of questions, and then I'll do another one. And then I can get through them, like going through like my emails at work or something. I can just go through my mailbox and address each one. Then I will, as long as I see the question, I will address it and talk about it. I promise you that. So. And I'll mention the name or the handle of whoever sent said question or comment, just so that you know that I'm answering your question, basically. Right then, so let's get this underway. So it looks like a lot of questions, as in I've got 4 sheets here, but that's deceiving because I've printed them out in a bigger font. Haha, there you go. Yeah, so back in the old days, I would have printed these out in maybe, I don't know, 12 size font. I think these are in 14, so it takes up more paper. But, you know, I need to be able to read them, and they will get recycled after. They all get turned into shopping lists, basically, the back of them. So I cut them up and staple them together, and they're just shopping lists then. Right, enough jibber jabber. So this is hopefully getting to know you guys, you getting to know me. And I say that for the newcomers, really, because those of you that have been with me for years, you know a lot about me already. And but things do change. And anyway, we'll just see where it goes, and then you can judge for yourself what the video is, really. So starting from the top, then these are in. I'm just going to read them top to bottom. They're not in any particular order or anything like that. Just copied and pasted over, and away you go. Okay, so the very first question I've been given here, or comment, I think it's a question, yes, it is from Man Cave Must-Haves. And the question is, how do you feel about the current state of 3D printing? I know you've talked about this before, some time ago, but wondered if this has changed at all. Now, that's interesting. I know I have talked about 3D printing before. And you know what? I can't even remember what I said. So all I can do, whether it's changed or not, I don't know. But I can tell you what I think about it now. And then you can be the judge if you remember what I said last time or whenever you remember it. So I'm just going to have a sip of water. So this is one of those videos you can put on in the background whilst you're trying to kill some time painting some armor or something, or doing some basing. How do I feel about the state of 3D printing? Now that is a quite a broad spectrum of a question. I don't really know in what context you mean, and forgive me for not picking up on it if I'm supposed to be. Do you mean like its knock-on effect on the industry, whether I think it's good? Right, we'll start with regards to the industry. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to affect the industry anymore. I guess, and I know I've been asked about that in the past, years ago, I would have expected to have a greater impact on the industry of today. There are a lot more 3D resin printing companies out there making wonderful miniatures and terrain and everything else. For instance, my latest acquisition, Village Girl, is a 3D print, and most of my aliens models, apart from the ones I get in the actual sets, are resin. So I don't think it's had that big of an effect on the industry. What do I think about them myself? I think they're really cool. I don't think they're as good as hard plastic miniatures. Plastic miniatures are my ultimate favourites, unless I'm playing a really old school RPG game, and then I like to have metal miniatures if possible, because it helps set the mood for me. But anyway, enough of that. We're talking about 3D printing. 3D printed terrain is amazing. I think it's brilliant. I've got this cage here. I mean, it's simple stuff, but and you can get some quite intricate terrain pieces done in 3D printing. I think they're wonderful. I think they're really good. So if I didn't before, I do now. Would I like one? I know you haven't asked this, but would I like a 3D printer? Yeah, I'd love a 3D printer. Problem is, I don't have the room to accommodate it. I mean, if I really, really, really wanted to, I could. But my table is chocker at the moment with stuff that shouldn't be there. If I added a 3D printer to the mix, I mean, it'd never end. So no, I don't have the space for it. So I'm happy to order online and get my miniatures online from different manufacturers and companies that way. and I'm happy to do that and just be a consumer in that way. Okay, right. Next question. Gamer in the Zone. That's a good handle. Channel name. Oh, I wondered if I might get asked something. This must be a recent one. Please, can you reveal us your thoughts, if any, on the whole Sony/Microsoft debacle regarding the removal of physical discs from the next-gen consoles? Reveal to us your thoughts, I expect you mean. Yes, if any. So Sony, for those of you that don't know, if you're into video games, Sony and Microsoft have stated that their next generation of consoles are going to do away with physical discs, and they're going to be digital downloads only. What are my thoughts on it? Well, the internet is rife with hate about it at the moment, isn't it? Now, for those of you that don't know me, I own a Sony PlayStation 4. So obviously I'm not, really up on the latest technologies and that, I like to play a few games now and again. Would I like a digital gaming? No. I do like to have the discs there, and discs that I can trade in second hand. Most of my games have been bought second hand. I buy them, decide if I like them or not. I trade them back in for something else, and I like that. And I like to look at them on the shelf as well. It's like, my little collection's not great, not huge, but I like to look at it and think, oh yeah, I enjoy that game. And I look through it. I think, I'll play Grand Theft Auto today, or I'll play Batman. Whatever. I think removing discs from next-gen consoles is bound to get a lot of backlash from people. It would put me off, I have to say. To me, it's just turning consoles into PCs, really. And a lot of them, I mean, look at Microsoft Office and that. You end up paying a subscription for it. So there's a lot of games that'll be just subscription based. And then you have the possibility of losing your gaming library through IT issues, which you wouldn't have if you had physical discs only, or cartridges. I liked cartridges. Personally, I think for consoles I preferred the cartridge-based games, like the Nintendos and that. They were my favourites. I liked a big chunky console to slap into the top and play the game that way. Ultimately, if it happens, I'm not bothered, because, like I say, I'm not big on video gaming. I like it, but it's not the be all and end all. I prefer my painting hobby, if I'm honest. You can't put that on digital platform. So yeah, my thought is, I think it's a bad move for Sony and Microsoft to do that. And I don't know how. Oh, excuse me, itchy nose. I don't know how consumers will hit back. There'll be some clever genius somewhere will work out how to get around it, pirate games or something. I don't know. They'll do something to hurt them. And to be honest, the best way to hurt these companies, these big companies like that, Sony and Microsoft, is financially. Don't buy into their. I don't even know what word to use. Don't buy into their trap. Don't buy into their nonsense. If you can, stick with what you got. So that's what I'm going to do. Stick with what I got. Right, Jameson Harper says, will you be getting back to any Warhammer 40k content anytime in the future? Definitely will. When, I don't know. And what, I don't know. I've got so much of it. I've got tons of stuff to do. A Baneblade will probably be, I don't know. Might just keep that for retiring. I've got this retirement shelf, you see, which is groaning under the weight of the miniatures, even the plastics that it holds up. And yeah, if I retire, I can start plowing through them. But I don't know. We'll see. Definitely is the answer. Yes, I will definitely. But when, I can't say, because I'm not the fastest hobbyist. Sorry, hobbyist. You wouldn't believe I have an English degree, would you? I'm not. I'm not the fastest hobbyist in the world, and that's due to my work and my health. For those of you that don't know, I've got multiple sclerosis and epilepsy and ADHD and all these things combined. Plus, I'm getting on in years. Um, it takes its toll, and I'm not the fastest hobbyer. I like to think I do a fairly decent job, though. Okay. Fisherman Jack Sparrow is the next one. He says, "Hi Peter, how often do you get to game and what is your RPG of choice at the moment?" Wow. I can't remember, sir, the last time I gamed. Yes, I can. That's a lie. I can. The last time I gamed anything of any sort, if I take into account video gaming, my last gaming of any sort was I was playing Batman maybe 4 months ago. My last board game was Zombicide. That would be maybe a year ago. My last RPG, that would be about a year ago as well. And that was Call of Cthulhu. My RPG of choice at the moment, though, is Alien, a role-playing game by Free League Publishing. When I say my RPG of choice, it's my RPG I want to work on the miniatures, read the books, and just generally collect things for. Because I'm not gaming at the moment. But yeah, Alien by Free League Publishing. Okay, next question. Dice Dragon 87 says, "Hi there. I'm new to the channel, should be. Hey, we all make typos. I'm new, it's the editor in me. I edit books and things. See, hi there. I'm new to the channel and have really been enjoying your content, especially the beach paint-alongs. If someone was completely new to miniature wargaming, what game would you recommend they start with and why?" Ooh, that's quite a question. What game would I recommend? Well, I can't really say. I can't really say what games because I don't know what your preference is. Do you like historical wargaming? Do you like sci-fi wargaming? Or whatever, pulpy wargaming? I don't know. What I would say though, what I would start with is small skirmish type war games. Something like Congo, if you've that's classed as a war game, and you don't need many miniatures for it. You need the main core rulebook, and that's it. It comes in a set with some tokens and things. That's all you need. And then you can get figures from places like North Star figures, places like that. But skirmish type games, I say that because you're not investing a huge amount of money into miniatures, and it's not gonna cost you a lot, and it's not gonna take up a vast amount of space. And plus, skirmish games can be run on smaller tables. Bolt action, if you're into like Second World War type games, bolt action or Flames of War, because that's 15 mil. That's a smaller scale, so you could probably get away with a smaller playing area again. Yeah, go for some skirmish stuff. So you don't have to have a big initial outlay And that would be my ultimate advice to you. So I'm just going to take a sip of water. That way, if you decide you don't like it, you've not lost too much then. And if you do like it, but then most games will they have expansions and things you can really buy into the game. Say you like superheroes, it's not the cheapest, but Marvel Crisis Protocol, get the main starter set for that. If you think, wow, this is me, I like this. Doesn't need it. It only needs like a 4x4 playing area. But I really like this. Then if you want, you can get expansions for it. You can buy extra figures, teams, different heroes, villains, whatever, and do that. It's classed as a war game. But a lot of the really old traditional Napoleonics and that war games, they're quite big. You'd be looking at, I mean, traditionally, from my limited knowledge of wargaming, the older games were played on bigger tables, a lot bigger than 6 foot. They were like 10 foot and more. And some, even that I've participated in were, what was it, like 4-on-4, or like in Warhammer they call it Apocalypse, where it's like massive big tables. But yeah, I would suggest start small. Look for something small. Think about what area you want. Is it going to be fictional or non-fictional? So do you want historical accuracy? Do you want ancients? Do you want like Napoleonics? Do you want like Second World War, First World War, that kind of thing? Or do you want like Third World War, the one that never happened, like Conflict 47, something like that? Not skirmish sort of size, I believe. Yeah, there's games out there. Do you like gladiators? Look at Jugular, that sort of thing. You don't need hardly any miniatures for that. Yeah. Anyway, great question. I don't have the time to unpack that fully, but I hope my answer helps some way. Okay. That's the first page out of the way. Right, next question comes from the Solo General. He says, I assume it's a he, you often mention solo gaming. What, in your opinion, makes a game genuinely enjoyable as a solo experience rather than just a multiplayer game alone? That would, for me, that would come down to the game mechanics. Take Zombicide as a case in point. It's a board game, but it's a miniature board game. So it's classed as cooperative, which means you can have, you no matter how many players are in it, you all play on the same side, which means you can ultimately play as one person, just you, but you can play more than one character if you so wish, which is quite preferable in a game like Zombicide. You want at least a couple of you to do it. You're never going to do it on your own. You just won't have the firepower. But the mechanics are so great and integral in that game, and they're fairly simple. I'm not a fan. I'm not a huge fan of really complicated game mechanics. I like simple, light rules and that sort of thing. Zombicide is not too bad. Also, probably setup time. Whereas I've listed some advantages and pluses for Zombicide, and they're all great. Setup time can take a little while. So if you just want to sit down and play a solo game of an RPG, you don't need much for that. You can do it theatre of the mind. You don't need much setup, pen or pencil and paper, some dice. You don't even need figures. Just somewhere to roll your dice, basically. That kind of thing. Or, as I've just started doing, fighting fantasy playthroughs. That's kind of gaming. You just need a chair to sit in and read the book. Really, you don't need much more than that. But the answer to your question, it all comes down to mechanics. Game mechanics and how well they are implemented. Thank you for your question. Helm Hammer says, out of all the miniature rangers you own, Which is your absolute favourite to paint? And is there any one army or collection you'll probably never stop adding to? Whoa. Wow, that's a big, big question. I don't want a miniature Rangers I own. It's my absolute favourite. I don't think I've got one, to be truthful. I suppose Games Workshop or Citadel Miniatures ranks up there with them. But I like Reaper Bones, Reaper Miniatures. I like any sort of metal miniatures I can get my hands on, regardless of the manufacturer, as long as detail's good on the miniature. These Romans I've been doing lately, I mean, you know, these ones here, I mean, they're Victrix, and they're brilliant. Lovely detail, and they're hard plastic, lovely. So an army or collection, I'll probably never stop adding to my Warhammer, even though I've taken a major hiatus from it at the moment. I'll probably never stop adding to that, or my fantasy miniatures, because I use them in RPGs. So I'll probably never stop adding to that. I don't think I'll ever sit back and say, right, I've got enough of those now. Okay, thank you for that's a good question. But yeah, the miniatures, good. Thank you. War Games Wanderer asks, is there any game you've sold or traded away over the years that you now wish you'd kept? Well, not long after I started the hobby, I suppose not long after the first year or two, I decided to try getting into bolt action as well. That's probably the first edition or something, or it might have been the second edition. I don't know, so don't roast me. But I decided to get into bolt action. Quickly decided I wasn't able to afford both bolt action and Warhammer, and I ultimately chose Warhammer. So I sold all my bolt action stuff, all my books, all my minis and tanks and everything. And yeah, I regretted it. And I suppose the other thing I wish I still had, although I've got one now, is my own original copy of Hero Quest, the board game, and Space Crusade. Those games, because yeah, I should never have got rid of them. You can't undo things you've done, though, right? Thank you for that. Thanks for making me feel bad. All right, okay. Goblin Painter says, do you prefer painting individual display quality miniatures or getting an entire force painted to tabletop standard? I think I've answered that sort of thing before, but it's good to go over these things again. I don't think really I have a preference. It just depends on what I'm painting the miniatures for at the time. So say back in the day, particularly I'm thinking of War Machine here, you didn't need a lot of miniatures, so I would try to get them more display standard. Whereas if I had all the time in the world, obviously I could do that, and I like to try and implement that. But if it's boring things like pawn type characters, I don't know. But it depends. Like, say I needed a load of soldiers for a game, for an RPG, say, just to put in a castle and say that they're guarding the castle. Those miniatures, they don't need to be anything fancy. You could even get away with standees because it's an RPG, right? So I'm not that fussed about that. So things like these Romans, I'm just doing to a fairly decent tabletop standard. There's no major characters involved, whereas say my actual characters, I will probably put a bit more time and effort into and hopefully get them a bit better. I will probably start playing before they're finished, so that they're good enough to start playing with, but I will, in my spare time, I will continue to paint them to a satisfactory standard whilst I do so. And my Marvel Crisis Protocol, I want to paint them really to a better standard than I would ordinarily, because there's not loads of them. So it's not like an army as such. So yeah, but as to what do I prefer, it depends how I feel at the time. Don't really have a preference. Okay. Next one is Mini Mason. Hi, new to the channel. If you could only keep one tabletop game for the rest of your life, what would it be? And what makes it special enough to survive the cull? Okay. Again, you've not really given me any. I could do it a bit more context, but I don't have it. I mean, any tabletop game. That could be any game from Snakes and Ladders to Gloomhaven, really, couldn't it? If I could only keep one tabletop game for the rest of my life, if that's the case, I would say chess. Because there are more combinations than ways to play chess. There's probably more ways of completing the game after the first 3 moves on a game of chess than there are stars in the universe. I mean, because of that, really, 2 games are the same. So I'll say chess on that one. That's probably not the answer you was expecting, but I'm going to say chess. I love chess. I learnt to play at a very young age, and when I say very young age, I'm talking like 5 years old. Don't get me wrong, I'm not some child genius chess master prodigy or anything like that. I just knew how all the pieces moved and what the rules were. I wasn't very good at it. I like to think I'm okay at it now. But yeah, I'll say chess on that one. And it's an old game as well, so yeah. Okay, old school orc. Peter, you've played a lot of games over the years. Is there one classic that you think deserves far more attention from today's gamers? More attention. That's a strange question. Let me give that some thought a minute. Because, to be honest, I don't think there's any game that is dismissed by anyone. And to be honest, why should today's gamers care about older games? I would assume most of them do in their own way and research them in their own way. For instance, people that get into D&D now, a lot of them, I'm not saying all of them or even lots of them, but a fair chunk. I realised I kind of backtracked on myself there a little bit, but I'd say a fair chunk of them at least would be interested or intrigued what the early editions were like. Oh man, I could go back to chess again. See, I could do it again in more popularity. I liked it as a kid, used to watch it on the telly. And I used to like doing the chess puzzles with my father. They used to print one in the paper every week, I think. Yeah. It was a long time before I got a full-size chess board. I learnt to play on a travel chess set. Sorry, I can't give you a better answer than that, but that is my answer. Okay, next page. Critical Hit Chris. Looking ahead over the next year, what projects or games are you most excited to feature on Mini Warzone? Looking over the next year, what projects or games are you most excited to feature on Mini Warzone? Right, so you're not saying latest projects. Because at the moment, I'm quite excited to feature my fighting fantasy books on my channel. And I'm hoping that'll take me a fair while to get through those. I've only done 2 so far, the Warlock of Firetop Mountain and the Citadel of Chaos. I'm going to be, when time allows, plunging into the Forest of Doom next. Now, I know the guy over on Gamebrook Stripped Down. He seems to be cracking through them like there's no tomorrow. But from what I know of him, he is retired. So, in my defence, he does have a little bit more time than I to do that. And obviously, my projects are to get my solo role playing adventure up and running, and hopefully filmed in some manner, format, or whatever. Right, the one I've been talking about for years. I know it's always seems to be like a pipe dream just out of reach, but yeah. Yeah, I'm going to say for the fighting fantasy books. Will I go on to other gaming books? That's debatable. Probably not. I've got a few. I could do like maybe the Zork books or something like that, or a couple of others. But other than that, no, I'd stop there. Probably just fighting fantasy. Projects or games, I'd like to say my Castle Ravenloft and those other old Dungeons and Dragons board games that I've got, paint them up and get them going, because I'd like to do those, but I can't see that happening next year. To be honest, that's probably more of a retirement occupation as well. Thank you. That gave me a lot to think about, that did. Right. Fellowship fan. If Games Workshop announced one Dream expansion for the Middle-earth strategy battle game tomorrow, what would you most like to see? Go on. To be honest, I don't know what expansions are out there currently, but what would I like to see? Well, they already did a Helm's Deep one, didn't they? So that's a good one. And Battle of the Pelennor Fields, which I've painted up now. Done that. Ooh. There's probably nothing I could think of that hasn't been done. Maybe just redo them, rather than have us try and search for second-hand ones on places like eBay and so on. Just redo all the ones you've done. It's like the Mines of Moria. That'd be fantastic to be able to go through there. But I mean that's already been done. But it'd be nice to have them as new expansions again. You've done Lake Town for the Hobbit and all that. And are you going to base the expansions on the movies or the books? That's the other thing. So I don't know. I don't really have a dream expansion for that. But thank you for the question. Okay, Tea and Terrain. Be honest. How many I'll paint these next weekend miniatures are currently sitting in your pile of shame? Right, well, one thing you obviously don't know about me yet is that I don't have a pile of shame. It's a pile of future joy or a retirement shelf. I have no shame or guilt whatsoever, and all my unbuilt, unpainted miniatures, probably guesstimating approaching 1,000 maybe miniatures, and I don't care. I'm just looking forward to being able to do them. Thank you for your question. Okay. Obsessive Compulsive 1980 says, well, this is a comment rather than a question. So they say, I first came here because of the shorts you do with your dog. You show some lovely locations there. I especially like the woodland areas, and you should definitely do more of these. I am not a subscriber as I'm not really into the nerd stuff, but thought it would be fun to send you a comment as you asked. I also like a bit of nostalgia now and again too. Well, thank you. I genuinely appreciate your comment and the fact, it doesn't bother me that you're not subscribed. I appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to write that comment, send it to me, and yeah, no, I really appreciate that. Thank you. Maybe there's someone that might be into the nerdy stuff like I am. Share. But there'll definitely be more woodland stuff coming, because that's part of my everyday life, the shorts and that, and I do like that. I mean, I do the occasional hobby related short, but most of my shorts are of my actual real life. Yeah, and I'm trying to get into doing more on Instagram now as well. So head on over to Instagram and have a look there. Okay, thank you for that. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you. That's I think that's made my day. That. Oh, come on, someone that's not into the hobby, not into my interests, taking the time out. So that's a win. Right, Rusty Bolter says, if you could spend an evening playing tabletop games with 3 people from history, living or dead, who would you invite and what would you play? I've had something like that in the past before. When you say history, you don't state like celebrity or known history. So I'm gonna, as it's my channel and my playlist and my video, I'm gonna just pick any 3 I like. Top one would be my father, because he passed away many, 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 many years ago. I would dearly love to talk to him, but I'd like to play a war game with him. That'd be cool. Any game, really. I had a buddy here when I was young. He was called Adrian Moore. He died in a car accident when he was 17, I believe, learning to drive. I say I believe because I wasn't living here at that time. I was living in Plymouth. So I've only got hearsay to update me on those sorts of events. And he was heavily into like toy soldiers. He had hundreds of them. And he had like Germans and Americans. Might have had some British as well, but it's mostly Germans and Americans. And I was always envious of his toy soldier collection. We used to play toy soldiers, line them up and throw marbles at each other, and each other's armies, and make up our own rules. And that was just really, really cool. We were always drawing pictures of tanks and like World War II stuff on paper when we got to draw. So that's 2 people. We'd be playing the same sort of game, right? Anyone else? Let's say Peter Cushing, because he was an avid war gamer, wasn't he? I've seen pictures of him playing war games on his floor. And he made his own miniatures out of paper, didn't he? He was incredible. incredible artist. Thank you for that question. Veteran Dice, that's quite cool. You've reviewed quite a few systems over the years. Has there been a game that completely surprised you because you expected not to like it? So have I played a game over the years or reviewed a game that I thought was going to be rubbish, but I actually liked it? I suppose you could say maybe Congo. Wargaming in Darkest Africa. That was an unexpected gift. What a pleasure that game was. Brilliantly written. I love that game. Yeah, I'd have to say Congo. I do have a couple of Congo videos on my channel, so you have to find them in the playlist though. Okay, next is Scatter Terrain Steve. What's one gaming habit you've picked up over the years that you wish you'd started doing much earlier? Oh, crikey. I didn't know us hobbyists had any good habits. Do I have a habit I wish I started doing earlier? I can't think of any. Okay, I don't know if you would classify this as a habit per se, but waiting if something comes out and it's the new shiny, but just wait, take a breath, and I see, try and get past that. I must have this because it's the latest Warhammer release or whatever. Wait for the others to get it, have a look at it, and then see if it really is as shiny as you first thought. There you go. Okay. Honest hobbyist. Peter, I've been watching Mini Warzone for a while, and one thing I've noticed is that you often I think you mean, seem quite positive about the games you review. Do you think you're sometimes too generous? Are you ever reluctant to be more critical because you don't want to put people off a game or upset publishers? I'd be interested to hear how you approach reviews and where you draw the line between being fair and being honest. Well, that's... I mean, okay. I don't know what videos you've been watching in my reviews. I've always thought or felt that I've given totally honest reviews, and if I don't like something, I will say. I suppose I like... Why it probably seems like I like nigh on everything I review is I don't bother getting stuff I know I'm not going to like, mostly because of that habit I talked about earlier. I see something come out, I wait, let someone else unbox it and review it, and if they think it's crap, I probably won't get it. Or I will draw my own conclusion. I won't just base it on one review, but I'll do that. I'll draw my own conclusion, then I'll do it and unbox it and review it. I have over the years though reviewed stuff that I've not liked because I don't get any paid promotion or anything like that. So my reviews are my own. I've spent money on the products I review. If I think it's a load of trash, I will say so, and I will warn people not to get it if I think it's rubbish. I suppose I just don't remember. But I've been at this for many years now, and I just don't remember. But fair one. Thank you for your comment. Appreciate it. Always appreciate it. Grovertown says, "Do you have a favourite sport? Why?" That's an intriguing question. I've got several over the years. My favourite sports have changed. Okay. When I was younger, my two favourite sports were... Actually, my three favourite sports when I was younger were wrestling, old school wrestling because I was young, tennis, and snooker. Call it sport. Sport doesn't necessarily mean physical, does it? I loved snooker as a child. The old Steve Davis, Stephen Hendry days of old, Alex Higgins, that type of thing. And tennis, I was really big into tennis because when I was younger, I really, really wanted to be a tennis player, and I had tennis coaching lessons when I was in Plymouth and everything. I just never, and then obviously it's a very short-lived sport, tennis, I think, because it's such a physically demanding sport. As I got older, I got into golf. I've never really been into cricket. I've never liked football or rugby or American football or anything like that. It's just meh, whatever. Wow. Sports. I liked watching the decathlon when I was a kid, that sort of thing. I don't really have a favourite sport, I don't think, now. I still find golf relaxing to watch. And I have a good PGA Tour golf game on my PlayStation, which I find relaxing to play. It's pretty good. But I don't, at the moment, I don't currently have a favourite sport. I say I don't mind snooker, but I don't, apart from Ronnie O'Sullivan, I don't really know who a lot of the players are these days. And he's approaching, retirement probably. I don't follow anything. I guess it's because I don't have live television, so I don't get to watch that sort of thing. I haven't done for years and years and years. Um, yeah, it's the answer. I don't really have a favourite sport at the moment. Okay, second to last question coming up. Right, Specky all the way. That's a great name. How are you able to balance your work life with hobby time, etc.? I personally find it difficult as I work nights full time. I feel your pain. I've worked nights myself on and off over the years, and it is very, very difficult. It's not easy. And now, at the moment, I I'm not finding it easy at all. I'm not complaining about it because I need my job to, you know, pay the mortgage and bills and everything else. But it does eat into my free time because it also zaps my energy, which I don't have a lot of. And to do anything, I need energy. Having MS, I don't have a lot of energy anyway to begin with. So, I can be tired. Well, I am tired a lot of the time. So it is difficult. I don't think there is any. You just got to find your own way, really, basically. Um, I wouldn't want to give you any advice for fear it would be the wrong advice. So I'm going to have to respectfully say sorry. I don't really have a good answer for that one. Right, let's go on. Let's hope the last question's a bit easier. Right, Mini Stripper is the person. What is your go-to method for stripping minis? Have you ever had any really bad experiences? Yeah. At the moment, my go-to method for stripping minis has been the same one I've used for many, many years, and that's a Dettol bath, and scrubbing off the paint with tooth brushes. I've tried stripping gels over the years, just on one-off things, and that sort of thing, and some of them have been successful, some of them haven't. I'm currently looking into the AK Interactive mini stripper liquid that I've seen Duncan Rhodes use on his channel. He says it can strip the paint off a mini in about 3 minutes. Again, you need toothbrush, scrub it off of that. And I'm thinking, well, that's pretty good. That's pretty good if that's the case, because the Dettol bath you could do it. You soak in it for a few hours, or even overnight, preferably. But yeah. So I as far as a really bad experience, when I first started the hobby, I tried all sorts of things. Um, like flipping brake fluid, all kinds of stuff to strip minis, because I would buy a lot of my miniatures back in the early days of starting second hand from eBay. They'd already be painted badly, and I remember I bought this. I'm just going to lean forward slightly. My back's aching a little bit. I bought this Rhino mini from eBay once. It was pre-painted, and I thought, I'll just strip it and paint it again. It still had a few gaps in between. I thought it needs tidying up a bit, but the paint needs to come off first. And I don't know how I ended up trying to strip it with acetone, not on purpose, accidentally. I think I got my stuff mixed up, whatever I was using at the time, with my wife's. She used to do acrylic nails back in the day as a sort of extra job. And I used the wrong thing. I tried soaking it in acrylic instead of whatever I was using to strip the paint, and it melted right into the side of it. But there was a silver lining. I ended up turning it into a blasted terrain piece in the end for my battlefields, which looked all right. Wasn't what I wanted. I wanted the Rhino, but I still had to paint it. And I remember being gutted at the time, but I turned it into something. So I had something out of it. It's just an expensive piece of terrain as far as I was concerned, and that needed painting. But yeah, and that's all the questions I've got. I don't know how many it was. I didn't even bother counting. But that's cleared them out. Until the next time. Well, let's have another sip of water. It gets very dry. It's not only have I got the heat, I've got the fans drying my throat out as well. So there you go. That is my P&Q for this time. P&Q in the heat. 2026. If you've got any questions you'd like me to ask or answer, sorry, on my next P&Q, whenever that may be, pop them down below. Get hold of me on email. Either or. Yeah. And I'll write them down, and when I've got enough, I'll do a video on it. How long has that been? Nearly an hour. That's not bad. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Do like, thumbs up, and share the video if you can. And I'll see you guys on another video. Be a short one, I'm sure. Bye for now. Bye-bye.